He once ruled every newsfeed lap of luxury armies of disciples, a self-made emperor of internet virality. Andrew Tate built an empire on brutality and bravado, but now the throne is empty. The crowd's gone cold. Between bans, scandals, and serious legal storms, his fall has been as swift as his rise was meteoric. How Top G became public enemy #1, and why no one's crown is as bulletproof as it seems. Hi, it's me, Terry. So let's go.
I like the color.
You like the color?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had mixed reviews on the color. Some people said they like it, some people said they don't like it, and I said, well, what color's your Bugatti? Oh, fuck.
Andrew Tate wasn't always that guy. Before the Bugattis and bands, he was a professional kickboxer with a decent record, floating in the online void like every other semi-famous athlete. But somewhere around 2017, he discovered the algorithm's secret pressure point: outrage. He wasn't here to inspire. He was here to dominate, and he did it by blending three things: controversy, confidence, and a deep understanding of what makes insecure men click. It started slow. Clips of Tate shouting about hustle culture, about how depression isn't real, how men should never cry. His takes were hot garbage to most, but gold to the algorithm. The angrier people got, the further his face was pushed onto their screens. By 2020, he wasn't just posting. He was multiplying. He launched Hustlers University, a paid Discord cult disguised as a business academy. And just like that, broke teens with no direction became his street team. They clipped his most unhinged moments, spammed TikTok with his voice, and turned him into a brand.
You ever look around you and just look at the world and feel like, kind of like we're in the Matrix, like there's something missing?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's just you feel it in your gut.
Yeah, something isn't right here. Like everything just seems so superficial, and I don't know. I was always looking for this secret. I was always looking for, I wouldn't say happiness or contentment, but I was...
At the peak of his fame, Andrew Tate had officially achieved untouchability. At least, that's what he wanted you to believe. Millions of teenage boys called him Top G. He was living in a Romanian mansion, flying private, podcast hopping, and pushing this fantasy of ultra-masculine, ultra-wealthy rebellion. But beneath the Bugattis and cigars, a darker narrative had already begun to take shape. On April the 2022, Romanian authorities launched a criminal investigation into Tate and his brother Tristan. The charges: human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized crime group. It didn't matter how loud his fans screamed Matrix setup. The evidence was damning. Victim testimonies, surveillance footage, phone taps, even leaked DMs and WhatsApp messages started circulating. And yet, despite being arrested, despite the growing pile of legal chaos, Tate kept tweeting, kept podcasting, kept selling the same image of control. Even in custody, he was crafting the myth that the system was afraid of him, that he was being silenced for telling the truth. But at this point, it was no longer about masculinity, it was about damage control. By late 2022, the illusion began to shatter. Andrew Tate and his brother were detained by Romanian police in a dramatic raid that felt straight out of a Netflix crime doc. They arrested him because he's winning. Matrix doesn't like that. And just like that, his arrest wasn't a scandal, it was branding. "The Matrix has attacked me," he tweeted. His mugshot became a symbol. The silence, a strategy. For his cult of fans, this wasn't proof of guilt. It was confirmation he was dangerous to the establishment. But while his fan base doubled down, more evidence piled up. Voice recordings, conversations leaked to press, testimonies describing psychological manipulation and coercion tactics allegedly used on victims. And Tate? He dismissed it all with a smirk. "I don't fear prison," he said in one of his jailhouse interviews. "Only cowards fear what they cannot control." It was no longer about his image. It was about rewriting the narrative while the walls closed in. As the legal noose tightened, the internet split in half. On one side, die-hard Tate loyalists who treated every court date like a UFC weigh-in. On the other, survivors, whistleblowers, and ex-fans who once saw him as a role model, now calling him a manipulator in disguise. This wasn't just an influencer under fire. It was a full-on digital civil war. Reddit threads exploded with debates. YouTube flooded with essays titled, "Why I Stopped Supporting Andrew Tate." But for every critical breakdown, there were 10 reaction videos defending him, calling it all a global smear campaign. What makes this more disturbing? Tate's message evolved. He stopped just talking about self-help or masculinity and started preaching martyrdom. His fan base didn't just like him, they were ready to fight for him. It wasn't just content anymore, it was belief. And that belief, even as charges stacked up, only grew stronger. Just when the internet seemed to have drawn its battle lines, actual evidence started leaking, and it was bad. Screenshots, transcripts, secretly recorded calls, all allegedly tying Tate and his crew to a long-running business built on manipulation, coercion, and exploitation. And suddenly, the whole Top G empire started to look like something else entirely, a facade built on fear, not freedom. Romanian prosecutors allege that Tate wasn't just filming content or running courses. They claim he built a network, recruited vulnerable women, and psychologically trapped them using what's been described as the lover-boy method, a tactic used by actual traffickers. Suddenly, all those old brags, they weren't motivational anymore, they were self-incriminating. And even longtime supporters had to stop and ask, was this all just a pyramid scheme built on pain? The empire wasn't collapsing overnight, but the cracks were visible now, and they were spreading. As Tate's legal trouble escalated, so did the online war. What started as a social media influencer drama had now morphed into a full-blown ideological battleground. You had two camps. On one side were the hardcore Tate disciples, teenage boys, crypto bros, red pillars, who treated his arrest like a biblical injustice. They called it the Matrix, a setup, a war on masculinity. They didn't just believe in Andrew, they worshipped him. Every update from his legal team shared like gospel. Every word he said from his Romanian jail cell interpreted like scripture. This wasn't just fandom anymore, it was cult behavior. And then on the other side, you had critics dissecting every clip, every contradiction, every shady business claim. Feminist creators, legal analysts, ex-fans, they were all sounding the alarm. It became impossible to have a neutral opinion. People were either praying for his release or celebrating his downfall. And Andrew, he was loving the chaos, because even in a prison cell, he was still the main character. By this point, it didn't even matter if Tate was guilty or innocent in the court of law, because in the court of public opinion, the verdict had already been delivered, and it was split straight down the middle. To some, he's a falsely accused hero, silenced for empowering men. To others, he's a manipulative cult leader whose empire was built on lies, scams, and exploitation. The irony? He told everyone the system was out to get him, and then the system got him. But here's the real kicker. His message, no matter how controversial, has now been immortalized. His sound bites live on in fan edits. His philosophies are repeated in Discord servers like gospel. His influence, especially over young boys, is bigger than ever, despite, or because of, his downfall. So even if he never returns to content creation, Andrew Tate's digital ghost isn't going anywhere. And that, honestly, is the scariest part. Because when your brand is built on controversy, the collapse only fuels the legacy. So where does that leave us now? Tate is still under house arrest. The court proceedings continue, the fans remain divided, the hate is louder, but so is the loyalty. It's like watching a live-action supervillain origin story, but no one knows whether this ends in redemption or complete ruin. And while Tate once saw himself as untouchable, immune to cancel culture above the law, now we see the reality. Even the loudest voice on the internet can be silenced. Maybe not forever, but long enough to remind everyone watching that this game, this internet fame built on outrage and ego, it always ends the same way. Whatever happens next, one thing's clear. This story isn't just about Andrew Tate anymore. It's about the culture that created him and how far it'll go to either destroy him or keep him alive.